Good evening, and thanks for sticking with 21 News. We have yet to hear from the governor as we're looking into what comes next for issue 1 and 2, the big issues getting nationwide attention after voters in the deep red state of Ohio voted yes on both by over 56%. Issue 1 being an amendment to protect reproductive rights. Issue 2, a statute to legalize recreational marijuana. 21 News was the first to project the passing of both issues not long after results came pouring in. And I ask whether these results reflect any changes in Ohio's political climate. As Ohioans vote yes on abortion protection and recreational marijuana, where does that leave the electorate? U.S. Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, seeking re-election, tells me he does not see this as a shift in the mind of voters. He sees it as a push to the polls.
And I think people in Ohio and the Mahoning Valley and beyond understand that there are a number of politicians in Ohio that want to see a nationwide abortion ban. And yesterday, people turned out in huge numbers to say a strong no to that.
Advocates say they're not surprised to see these controversial issues lead, adding that voters on both sides are choosing to no longer be, quote, complacent in the wake of what could be seen as extreme rulings in the eyes of voters. Rulings like Ohio's 6-week abortion ban, regardless of rape or incest, also known as the Heartbeat Bill, as well as the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
You know, the Dobbs decision was a wake-up call to a lot of voters who may not have been prioritizing this issue in the way that they are now.
Something Ohio U.S. Senator J.D. Vance alluded to in a lengthy statement. Vance says issue 1 is a gut punch, but adds in part, instead, we need to understand why we lost this battle, and that leaders have to recognize how much voters mistrust elected Republicans on this issue. Having an unplanned pregnancy is scary.
You know, Ohio is now the 7th state that has had a direct ballot question on abortion, and the side of reproductive freedom has won in all 7.
Meanwhile, Mahoning Valley's Right to Life, a pro-life organization, says there is no plan they're aware of at this point to address issue 1 results. They say they are disappointed and will continue to spread their faith-based message, but do believe that the mother's protection is the most important. So then what comes next for these two issues? Well, this ultimately means that the state Supreme Court will have to strike down the Heartbeat Bill. Experts say it is likely the state will uphold certain reproductive restrictions, such as the ban on abortion after fetal viability, unless there is risk for the mother. And as for issue 2, recreational use and possession of marijuana, that will officially be legal on December 7th. Dispensaries warn it will take a few years to get adult use dispensaries up and running. Meanwhile, Bishop David Bonner of the Youngstown Catholic Diocese says he is saddened by the passage of issue 1. He sent us a statement that says in part, quote, "Our care for life and one another can never be reduced to Election Day. We need to be intentional every day about our love for one another and human life. This is all about forming a culture of life and a civilization of love." One of the issues here locally that tanked in the polls was the Poland school levy. Nearly 3/4 of voters said no to the bond issue to build new schools. The school board is meeting right now as they head back to the drawing board. That's where we find Chris Serenelli tonight. Chris, what's being discussed?
Madison, this meeting did just get going a few moments ago, and Craig Hockenberry, the superintendent, told me as much that this meeting would be focused on what this Plan B would look like and contain going forward. He told me earlier, about an hour ago, that the district will be focusing on, at least from his perspective, which old buildings could be reopened and repurposed, along with things like realignment and compensating for overflow because of growing enrollment. And of course, they're going to have to figure out a way to present all of that to the school board in a way where they don't have to do any, if at all, pivoting or reorganizing a way that everyone can agree on to move forward. Of course, as you mentioned, the residents in Poland soundly shut this bond issue down last night by about 3,500 votes. It was a 12.1 mil bond issue along with a half-mil tax levy. And back in November of 2015, they also rejected a similar bond issue. Now, while all this is going on here in Poland, Canfield, right across down 224 on the opposite end, school officials officials there are meeting to discuss how to move forward after a similar bond issue also failed there last night. Now, we're going to be taking a closer look at both of these scenarios in both of these districts coming up tonight on 21 News at 11, and we'll have much more from school officials in both Poland and Canfield. Live in Poland with more local news, I'm Chris Sarinelli.
And remember, you can find all of your local election results in full detail up on WFMJ.com and our 21 News app, and you'll see them right at the top of the screen.